had to stop to light up a cigarette. Because when I'm not smoking, I get swollen. I was just walking up here from the store and had these two young ladies, just tourists. They were, I guess teenagers maybe, or maybe early 20s. I can't really tell when you're older, you don't know. And they were fine. But we were on a sidewalk about the size of this one up here. So like I heard them coming, so I kind of moved. But as I was moving, they would just move with me. And when I tell you, they were so close behind me, I was afraid to stop because I knew they'd run into me. And that's pretty much almost what happened. I saw a driveway coming up and I just sidestepped out of it. And I was like, oh, excuse me. Like, oh no, excuse us, whatever. And then they kept just talking, going on. Really strange how that happens. I complain about that and bitch about that all the time. But the thing is, I wasn't smoking. If I was smoking, they wouldn't have got so close to me. If they were a different kind of people, I'd never have let them got that close to me. But they are moving quickly. It's fine. It just reminded me, dude, when you're out here, try to be smoking when you're out here. Because it does work. It does keep people away. I saw this yesterday, this crime here. Again, something that usually never happened here before. Something like this. It just didn't happen. I felt bad for the owner too, because she was like, why would they do this? Why would someone do that? She was just shocked by it. And she should be, because we've never seen this kind of thing before. I remember the first one of these type of culturally different crimes, I guess I gotta call them. Because I said it before, like, there's some island guys that are bad dudes. I knew a lot of them. Worked for some of them. They always get to me, but they were not guys you'd want to mess with. A lot of the stuff, I guess they were, I don't want to call them criminal organizations, but yeah, I guess they were. They would be pretty ruthless against each other. They had a lot of vendettas. They did some real fucked up things to each other. These were old feuds. I was involved with one of the groups as just a bookkeeper, because they were, literacy is huge here. A lot of people can't read and write. That's just a symptom of a lot of other things, but whatever the case, that's what I was doing for them. They're really cool, but yeah, they don't mess around. These aren't guys that mess around, and they do engage in crime, normally drug dealing, but nothing like hurting the other locals or different business owners. These new residents that have come in, they don't have any respect for the people or the island. They don't care. They will go into these local businesses and put a gun in a face of an old woman, and that's what happened. In the first one that we noticed around here, there was a jewelry robbery. It was up toward the North Shore, and it was like guys in masks and stuff, and I'm looking at them like, and it just looked like something that would happen anywhere USA. But to the people here, they were all like, this doesn't happen here. We've never seen this kind of thing. If you're like a bad guy on the island, and like you engage in crime and stuff like that, you islanders still have a respect for their ohana. They're not going to try to hurt local businesses or hurt anyone outside of kind of their realm, their game, their thing. I mean, they seem to fight amongst each other, maybe over territory, maybe over who gets to deal drugs here, or however that is, but they're not going into local businesses and putting guns in people's faces. We've never seen that before. That's a completely new phenomenon here over the past 3-4 years. And this is another one of those instances. Like, so the woman, the owner of the car lot, was like, why would they do this? Because she's not used to seeing this kind of thing. No one is, because this kind of thing simply never happened here before. It was just not a thing. I mean, this kind of crime was brought with the influx of new residents. For a while, I was trying to tie the two things together, but in my mind, I'm absolutely certain that's. I mean, just look at the graphs. You know, new people come in, crime skyrockets. Well, and the kind of crimes, these kind of crimes, like these brazen sort of crimes and attacks on local businesses, which was just not a thing. It just didn't happen. But if you don't have any respect for the people or the island or the community, then you do that because you don't care, you know, because that's what you do. That's your gig. What I'm trying to, I think the next thing to figure out is like how this happened. The whys of why they wanted to do it are also something I'm kind of digging into, and it's becoming more clear. They needed the shapers, the farmers. They needed people to be their golems. They didn't have enough golems here. And a golem is it's like a magical sort of monster in Yiddish folklore. It's like an empty vessel that will then do the bidding of who's ever controlling it, its master. It's a Jewish folklore thing. And they like having golems to do their work for them. So they didn't have enough golems here because the islanders, Native Hawaiians, however many few there are left, but even generational islanders that have lived here, they're not interested in being a global homo golem. They have no interest in that. So when they have things like the Black Lives Matter protest they had here for St. Floyd, all the local businesses boarded all their shit up, all this preparation went in anticipation of these crazy riots. I didn't have a channel at the time, but I did have my Instagram page, and I was following the week surrounding it. I was taking note of some really interesting things that were happening in the neighborhood, including a lot of new people who I had never seen before, that to my mind were point men, you know, guys that kind of they all wore. Here's how I started putting this together: shoes, socks, and gray backpacks, watches. It was like a CIA type of thing. I mean, they might not have been CIA, but they're certainly point men for when this thing was supposed to go up. So I started photographing them, like taking photos of their gear, kind of showing them on Instagram, like showing people, hey, these guys are infiltrating my neighborhood. They're all obviously working for something, and a lot of them were like just these sort of dudes that look like they were like Antifa type guys, like young white guys with a lot of like some communist splash kind of tattoo. They look like sort of that Antifa people, you know. And I knew they weren't from around here because I'd be behind them in line. They'd be asking kind of questions about things like, hey, but you know, just local questions, asking things. They'd never been in the stores they were in. So all these people came in a week before this. I was posting all this stuff on poll too, but I didn't have a channel at the time, so I was just putting it on Instagram and poll. The thing, and then there were other weird things, like I noticed there were a couple construction sites, right? That a building that's built now, and another one was called King's Village. They were, at that time, active construction sites. The entrances of these places, both of these construction sites, had big pallets of bricks right next to the doors of both these construction sites. Now, hey, that was a construction site. Of course they had pallets of bricks. But that place, the one that eventually got built, they weren't using bricks. Like not those kind of bricks that you throw. They had no reason to be there. And the other construction site, they hadn't even built anything yet because it was tied up in like some kind of local pissing match, which is what happens a lot, depending on who owns it. the Japanese and the Koreans and the Chinese always kind of fight over things as far as land, so they always try to fuck each other over. So I think it's one of those situations, but what happened to that one in particular is that it's too, they can't go down far enough to put a foundation in. Most of all this stuff is what would be considered wetland on the mainland, and you wouldn't be able to build on it. But anyway, it's getting away from me. They were setting up bricks there. They had bricks set up, okay? And I was noticing some of the boarded up buildings, they had these entrances to some of them that were locked. So if someone needed to get in and out really quick, you could. And that tower over there, that fortress over there that I think shenanigans go on in, maybe moving of people, they had their doors kind of opened up. They had their stuff off it. So, but it was still locked. They just took down their regular fencing and stuff. So I was just collecting all this stuff, anticipating some kind of freak out when this whole thing went off, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. Not a brick was thrown. Well, this got them real salty. I think they thought, you know, they would get all their stuff in a row like they do in other American cities. They would put all their point men here, their higher ranking, like Antifa people or whatever, and they would lead people to do this shit. But Islanders just don't give a fuck about fucking George Floyd. They have their own problems. There's just simply not enough black people here. It was 1% of the population, and that's where the problem was. There wasn't enough people here that could do these kind of freakouts. Not long after they had this other thing where they were trying to get people to stage some kind of protest because African American was shot by police, and they were trying to do this, how come there's no outrage about it? And I'd heard about it previously, and I went into I looked into the story, and it's fucking wild. This guy, this African guy, entered a stranger's house, okay? This little old Asian lady went into her living room, sat on her couch, and took his shoes off. And he was being hostile when she was asking him, like, what are you doing here? Cops showed up. He tried to attack the cops, and then they shot him. So, but of course it's police shoot black man, you know, and the wife of the guy, the black guy, who is white, you know, so she's burning it, you know. She was like, the woman couldn't see past his race, meaning the Chinese woman whose house this guy invaded. She couldn't see past his race. Like she says, if he wasn't a black guy, she wouldn't have called the cops on him. He came into her house and like sat down. He invaded her house, you know. She called the cops from there. So she was kind of trying to drag the old Asian lady, like, you know, she couldn't see past the fact that he was no, he's a stranger in my house that's like taking his shoes off. And when I ask him what the fuck he's doing there, he acts feral. You know, he acts feral. Cops show up, he tries to attack them, then they shoot him. So they were trying to get a protest going, and they couldn't because there just wasn't enough people that give a shit about this kind of thing here. They got their own problems with, you know, the government. These people here are getting screwed over by them fucking 10 ways till Sunday, and 10 times on Sunday. They don't really care about the African American plight because, well, there's not enough African Americans here, and they have their own problems with the U.S. government. They're getting fucked over like way worse. The African Americans these days aren't getting fucked over by the government at all. They're, you know, especially comparative to what's been going on here in Hawaii. So they don't have sympathy for this cause, and only a lunatic would protest for them shooting a guy. The only thing I think that's too bad is they didn't get him before he invaded this poor woman's house. So that's a problem for these people. They need to have more of their golems who will cause the kind of chaos and strife that you see in other American cities. Now, so how do you get that population here? It's very expensive to live here, and that's why the population here, And that's why the population here has been very small. You don't see them, well, you didn't see them much. You see them, they're half the people in the street now these days, but there's just no way for them to get here, right? And I was out with my neighbors the other night behind the house, and we were kind of talking about this stuff. It was funny. Everyone at first was just kind of like, because we didn't never talk about these kind of things. We talk about some stuff, but everyone was kind of like trying to dance around the issue until finally, I forget, it wasn't me, but someone remarked what the problem was, and everybody was like, yeah, I didn't want to say it. But and they said the same thing that I was hearing when COVID happened, when the state opened up again. You saw like a lot of different people that don't normally, would never normally be here. I mean, it used to be like, I'd see 1 or 2 African Americans. When I first moved here, I remember my wife saying, yeah, we don't have really many Latinos or black people, we just don't have them here. And I remember going to the store a couple weeks later, and I was like, honey, I saw a black guy at the store. She's like, really? Well, yeah. It's like, he might have been a tourist. And so that's how rare it was. And then I did meet a Latino guy in Chinatown. I overheard him talking on the phone, and he seemed all right. He was cool. He had like a Guns N' Roses shirt on, so I knew he wasn't like I don't know why. I guess I used that as something to make me think he'd be all right. So I talked to him for like, yeah, we don't have it. I used to live in a Latino community, and we just don't have them here. And when you think about it, usually they're on the lower economic sort of rungs, so that's kind of kept them out, I got people following around. So you just didn't see like those people here. And now when COVID came, and my neighbor was saying, everyone told me it's just because people got money from the government, like that how they were giving money out. So all these people came on vacation. I don't know how many people he knows from that community. I don't know how much time he spent in around or in projects. If people from that community on the lower income scale, you hand them $1,200, they don't think Hawaiian vacation, like at all. Like they couldn't find Hawaii on like a map, or that there are so many things that they would spend that money on first, clothes or stuff for the car. And I'm not even saying like black people. I mean, most people would probably have a ton of things they'd want to spend it on before Hawaiian vacation. Like that Hawaiian vacation is sort of like that's like something if you have a lot of money, So yeah, it was noticeable, the change in demographics, and people were telling me the same thing. Oh, it's just because people got money, so they're coming here for vacation. And that's what these guys were hearing too. And the neighbors that we're talking to were not all white guys. In fact, well, there was one other white guy. So it's like a bunch of white men sitting around talking, why are all these blacks in the neighborhood? Although we kind of were asking it. But yeah, so then as it happened, a lot of people came in from the mainland, and they just stayed. And they stayed. Now it feels like they're half the people I see out in the neighborhood. And when you look at the jump in demographics with that group, it's gone up 2020, 2021, 2022, 3 to 4% every year. That's a big jump. That's a big jump. While every other demographic has gone down. Population of Hawaii has been declining since like 2017, I think. Started slow decline. It could have been earlier than that. But yeah, so anyway, we're noticing that there's a lot more of those people from that background here. And with their arrival comes the sort of crime that is associated with that group in the lower income areas that they live in. Brazen gun crime, assaults, the kind of crimes where lack of critical thinking and lack of abstract thinking allows that to happen. Like consequences really aren't in your mind if you don't have a good grasp on abstract thinking skills. I just had a problem with abstract thinking skills. I couldn't think of it for a minute. It's like in a video game, right? Like you put like an RPG or like Dungeons and Dragons or some shit. You have a pool of points, ability points. You can put them in intelligence. You could put them into, you know, wisdom. You could do this with like every group of people. But if you don't put enough points in the intelligence bracket, there goes. If you don't put enough points in the intelligence bracket, you're not going to be able to open up more trees. Like, say you put points into strength. If you put 10 points in, then at 11 points you can open up a two-handed sword ability. Before that, you can't use two-handed sword because you didn't put enough points into it. It's the same thing with thinking, like the brain. If you don't put enough points into intelligence, you're not going to be able to open up that abstract thinking skill. And abstract thinking is what it's conceptualizing the future, so it's very consequence side. So that's why jail is not a deterrent for a lot of people, because they can't conceive of future consequences. So it's those kind of crimes, like those kind of instant gratification things, like they have money there, I'm just getting this gun and going in and getting it. And those are real dangerous crimes because there's not a lot of thought of consequence. That's where a lot of people get really hurt, some killed, you know. So yeah, this is the kind of crime we're seeing now that has come with this new influx of residents who, under normal circumstances, would never be able to live here or be here. And Native Hawaiians and Islanders are getting bumped out of this housing, being made to live in the woods so that these newcomers can have their spot. So they're being brought here, right? But how do they facilitate that? Like, I gotta find that part out. Like, what do? Do they just set up a stand in like Roxbury and be like, hey, any of you guys want to transplant your family to Hawaii? You know, how does that work? What is that mechanic that gets that going? I'm not going to start talking to people about that. Like, hey, how'd you get here, man? Why would I do that? I don't want to do that. But do I have to do that? Is that what I have to do to figure this out? Because it's kind of like it's an itch in my brain. It's like, how did they get this to happen? How did they get all these people here that will certainly do their bidding next time they want to have a freak out for something? Now they have the people here. And it's at the expense of generational Islanders, Native Hawaiians, and people that have always lived here. They're losing their social services, they're losing their housing, they're losing the ability to gain services because it's all going to these new people who they've just brought in here. Unless, like, you know, you tell me it's just all organic, like they just decide to start coming over en masse. They don't, like, a lot of these guys couldn't point out Hawaii on a fucking map. You know, they have no idea. So there's some kind of incentive bringing them here, and it's definitely some kind of operation. I just don't know how it's being done. I'll figure it out, and then I'll report on it, and then we'll just all kind of say, oh, okay, because what are you gonna do? You know, it's a curiosity thing now, though. I mean, so we see that it is happening. We kind of have ideas of why they want it to happen. You can see who's suffering from having it happen. But how do they actually make it happen? How do they get these people on a plane? Under what pretense and circumstances they get these people on a plane and get them here to live here? Because they go right on services, you know, because they already had services on the mainland. They're coming from bad parts of the country on the mainland. They're already very well into the services. That demographic doesn't have a problem getting everything. That's why it's really rare to see like a black homeless guy. Like, if you see a black homeless guy, fucking just don't cross the street. Like, go to a fucking different town, because you know he is just he's gonna cause you problems, because he fell through like 10 different social safety nets to be out here. They're rare to see black homeless guys. It's usually white guys, because they have 0 social safety nets. So Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I didn't think it would be this would take up this much of my time, but the more I got into it, the more I was like, huh. And then so I keep digging and digging. And the only thing left to figure out is how it was actually done. So I gotta really give that a big think. The answer doesn't lie here, though. It lies in the communities that these people came from. I'm gonna get on that right now. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.